Hello everyone, my name is JT Harmon, and today I'd like to talk to you about why you should support the Supreme Court's latest decision of overturning Roe v Wade. What we need to first realize is that abortion is something that is a very controversial subject. It's talked about all across the United States, and there's many different opinions on it. But today I'd like to present you with factual statistics about abortion. Abortion happens all across the United States, and it is proven that 1 in 4 women have had an abortion. Now think of that statistic. 1 of 4 women have had an abortion. And only 1.5% of those abortions that are reported are due to rape or incest. That's a very important statistic. It's also factual that there are nearly 1 million reported abortions every year in the United States. Now, these are some statistics that really speak a lot about this decision that was made. 50 years ago, nearly 50 years ago, the Supreme Court decided that it was okay for women to abort a baby up to the date of birth, or in different, certain cases in different places. But this was the decision that was made in 1973 in the case of Roe v Wade. And over the last 50 years, it is proven that close to 1 million abortions have happened per year in the United States. And this is a terrible thing because that's 1 million lives that could have made a difference in this world. That's 1 million lives that could have made a difference in your local community. And those lives were not given a chance. Now, many people will talk about abortions and they will say, well, there's situations and circumstances where it's the only choice that a person has. And a lot of times the circumstances that they will bring up is rape or incest. And I agree, those are terrible, terrible circumstances and situations. And those are outlier cases that many people can agree with and sympathize with. But as we read in our statistics, 1.5% of those 1 million abortions that happen per year is due to rape and incest. That's something that we need to think about. That's something that we need to consider. This is a topic that I would ask you to not look at from a political point of view, but I would ask you to look at it from a humane and moral point of view. That a baby in a mother's womb is a precious life. And people will say, well, it's not really a human being. Well, I would ask you, what is the sign of life? The sign of life is a heart beating. And we realize, and anybody knows, that you can hear a baby's heartbeat at 21 days old. And I may not be exactly right. I believe it's 21 days old. And that's something that we need to consider. That's a precious life in a mother's womb. So this is a decision that you should support, no matter what political party that you would identify as, no matter maybe what your friends are saying. This is something that you should consider and not argue about, not jump in the circle of arguing and just hashing things back and forth and talking about which political party that you stand with and divided in your opinion. You should just consider this from a moral and humane point of view, that abortion is something that has been drastically overused over the last many years. You would have to realize that. And I want to share a story. I was talking with someone just a few days ago after this decision was made about a week ago in the Supreme Court. And this person whom I did not know, she was a young lady, we just started talking, and she found out that I am a pastor of a church, an assistant pastor at my church. So she was very nice and had a great personality. So she immediately asked me, as soon as she found that out, she said, well, how do you feel about the topic of abortion? And that, was a question that I wasn't expecting, just from somebody I didn't know. But I could tell she didn't want to argue, and that's not what I want to do. And I didn't bring it up to her. She brought it up to me. So I told her that it was just something I didn't agree with. I told her that, there's a lot of bad circumstances and cases that, well, there's outlier cases like that you hear about. That's not good. And she began to say that, she thinks that it's the right for everybody to choose what they do with their body. You hear that argument a lot. And I said, well, I would have to say that there's a lot of alternatives to getting an abortion that people can choose. And immediately she spoke up and interrupted me and said, I know what you're going to say, adoption. And I said, well, that's one of them that I would suggest for someone. And she said, I don't like adoption. I'm very against it. And I said, well, why is that? And she said, because I was a part of adoption. I was in an adoption clinic. She said that she did not know her mother and that she was in an adoption clinic. And I think she said at 3 years old that she was adopted. And she said it was hard up till then. But I just looked at her, and in a very nice way, I said, well, I have to say that I'm glad that you're here talking to me right now and that you had that opportunity to be adopted. And she just kind of looked at me and said, well, you are right about that. And so we began to talk again, about kind of the situations that women face with that. And she said that, that a lot of women was not planning to be pregnant. And that's true, but there's a lot of circumstances like that. You hear that all the time. That's very true. But there's a whole lot of alternatives that people can take. There's adoption clinics in every state, and there's assistance with that. Every state has child care. Every state has care management and case management for different situations that maybe are a surprise or things like that. And getting back to my story, she said, well, I actually have a young boy, and he was a surprise. And we just kind of had left the topic of abortion and was talking about her. And she said, and I love him so much. I want to do this and this and this for him. And anyway, I just, spoke kindly to her, and we kind of parted ways. And it wasn't an argument. It was a very good conversation. She actually told me and the person I was with that she enjoyed talking to us. But I began to think about what she said, that she had a child that was a surprise, but that child was the love of her life. And how many people have missed this opportunity to have that relationship with a child that could have been a wonderful thing in their life, but they made a decision that they weren't ready to make at that time in life. Maybe they were talked into it. Maybe they were faced with hard circumstances. And maybe they could have changed their mind and went in different avenues like adoption or child care, but they didn't know about it. So the reason you should support this decision that was made just a few weeks ago is because it's the right thing to do. It is the moral and the humane thing to do, to stand for life, to give life a chance for every person. Every person has an equal right to live and to have a form of life. And you might say, well, that's not really a life in that person. And my last plea to you is that when you hear a heartbeat, what does that mean to you? Is it just a sound? If your heart stopped beating, what would that mean? So we need to think of these things. You should support this situation, this decision rather, because it's the right thing to do. I'm JT Harmon, and thank you for listening to why you should support the Supreme Court's decision of overturning Roe v. Wade. Thank you.